All right, hey, what's going on, guys? So I wanted to share with you guys something very encouraging. I spent some time today with my mom, and we just had a nice son and mother outing, and we went to an aquarium. And I was walking around in the aquarium with my mom, and one of the things that we saw in a very large tank, a fish tank, was a lot of different species together. And I saw all these different fish from small to big. And to my surprise, one of the fishes, or one of the, mammals that we saw was a shark. And we saw several sharks in that tank. And that tank had many different sharks in it of different species, and many different fish, small and big, at the same time. And it was this huge tank. It was kind of their biggest tank, sort of, that this place had. And I was looking at that, and I was in awe, because I was looking at how the sharks were just sort of minding their own business, swimming around, and the other fish were just doing their own thing as well. And they were all sharing the same tank, and none of the fishes were provoking each other. None of the sharks were trying to eat the other fish. And of course, I don't know what it looks like throughout the day, how they get fed. And I know they eat. I'm sure they get fed somehow, whether they eat each other at certain times or whether other people feed them, the people at the aquarium feed them. I don't know that. But when I did look at it, it looked so peaceful in the midst of what you would think would be chaos. And I was looking at that, and I was thinking to myself, man, Lord, you have such a stasis in this tank. You have such a neutrality. You have such a balance in this place. And that reminded me of Matthew chapter 6. And if you don't know that passage, it's about not worrying. And I'm not about to read the whole thing, but as part of it, it talks about how the lilies of the field, as well as the birds of the air, they don't toil or spin. They don't reap or sow or bring things into their barn. And they don't have to be concerned about those things, because God feeds them and God allows them to have what they need for sustenance, and so that they can be provided every day. And I was reminded of not only the fact that we shouldn't be worried and we shouldn't be concerned about that, but more importantly, I looked at how God works in the universe. He works so magnificently in the midst of sin, in the midst of seeming chaos, in the midst of what we would assume is something that is hopeless, that we think that we need to do something about it. We need to help God control things and provide food for ourselves, for the people around us, and all these things. And when I even looked at that fish tank, I thought for a brief second, what if, these fishes need help? Why don't we have a barrier? Why are they all together in one place, right? And when God looks at the world, he knows that there's sin in the world. He knows that there's evil in the world. He knows that there's good people in the world. He knows that there are many types of people acting on each side. But he will never allow something to get to a point where it's just out of control. Not only for God, obviously, but for many of us. He's not going to let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. Scripture says he's not going to allow these people, whether they're evil, whether it's in your life, whether it's a sin, whether it's a addiction, whatever it is, overwhelm you to the point where you just can't do anything about it, right? And a lot of us, we think that way. We think it's hopeless, it's an end to everything, but really it's a choice because of free will, but also the fact that God allows it such that there is stasis and there is some sense of balance in the midst of seeming chaos. And even with the lilies of the field, even with the birds of the air, as well as even in this fish tank that I saw, where it just didn't make sense to me that they would share the same habitat. But God knows, and whoever designed that fish tank with all the different species and allowing that to exist, similar to how God allows all of us to exist in a fish tank of this earth, right? With everything that's going on. And I just want to encourage some of you guys, because a lot of people, we don't see it that way. We don't see it from the perspective of God and how he allows certain things to come into existence. He allows some things to happen, and it seems hopeless for you in your life, in your family, in your community, in the country, and in the world. But he allows it to happen for a reason, and he allows stasis, and he allows people to make their own choices. He allows people to bend in a certain way to such a degree that it's not it's not going to end the world if it moves in a certain direction. And so a lot of people, they're worried, they're concerned, and yes, Matthew 6 applies to your individual life, but also for the world too. If you ever thought about that, God doesn't allow us or doesn't want us to worry about what happens to a certain people group or a country or a community or all these things, because he provides for us. And even though it doesn't make sense what it means, even though it doesn't make sense what certain outcomes and reasons for certain people getting more things, more blessings, or more suffering, or more persecution or not happens, there's still a reason, and God is God. And you have to realize that he allows anything that he wants, and it's his will. If he wants certain people to have more, have less. And like I've said before, this life is but a mist, and it appears for a while and it vanishes. And you have to remember that your ultimate prize, especially those I talked about that are persecuted, it's in heaven, and none of this matters, right? As we're living through some of these times and whatever you're going through in your own life. And so you got to remember that God is fair, he's good, and a lot of us, we're using the wrong measuring stick, we're using the wrong lens to look at something. We're making assumptions like the fish tank, how these people or these fishes being together, it doesn't make sense, but to God, it makes sense. And God allows the neutrality, the balance, the stasis to exist. He allows both sides and many things for a lot of us to really wake up, to pay attention, and to realize as we're growing and as we're learning what's going on. And so I just wanted to encourage some of you guys with this, as I've been encouraged, and you guys hear a lot of my stories. When I see something in everyday life, God encourages me in some way as he reminds me of something in scripture and in the way that life works. And so just want to encourage you guys with this. God bless you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.